The prime equity clause is not just a legal footnote in a flashy rookie deal. It's the ticking time bomb buried deep in the foundation of the NFL's old-school control system. And Shedeur Sanders just lit the fuse. Let's be clear. In the history of professional football, the league, not the players, has always owned the power of the brand.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
You wear the jersey. You play under the shield. The league owns your highlights, controls your image, and takes a hefty slice of every endorsement you land while wearing their gear. And if you're a rookie, you get the crumbs. But the prime equity clause flips that model upside down. Crafted by Deion Sanders, a.k.a. Coach Prime, a.k.a. the man who's been turning sports marketing into gold since the 90s, it grants Shedeur full ownership of his image rights. That means no cuts to the league, no middlemen, no NFL rubber stamps. Every photo, every logo, every endorsement using Shedeur's face, name, or vibe. He owns it. He profits. He controls the narrative. That's not just revolutionary. That's dangerous to the old guard. Because this clause doesn't just give a player financial independence. It gives him freedom, creative freedom, brand freedom, legacy freedom. Shedeur isn't playing to be the next face of a franchise. He's building a media empire around the franchise of himself. And the prime equity clause is the legal skeleton key, unlocking that potential. This is athlete autonomy on a level the NFL has never faced before. And the moment this deal went public, you could practically hear the collective gasp from front offices across the league. Not just because of the number, though yes, $50 million before your first real snap is loud, but because of what it signals. The players don't need to wait anymore. They don't need to wait for Pro Bowl appearances, for MVP votes, for legacy status. They don't even need to wait for a starting job. If they have the platform, the following, the strategy, they can own their image from day one. And Shedeur? He's not just the first. He's the proof of concept. This deal rattled the NFL because it sets a precedent that isn't just possible, it's repeatable. That's what makes it dangerous. Shedeur didn't sneak in through a side door, he just built a new one, and it's wide open now. So where does that leave the Cleveland Browns? Stunned, silent, possibly seething. They didn't just miss out on a QB, they missed out on the future of the league. The Browns were in the room when Shedeur's camp laid out the prime equity clause. They had the chance to embrace the model, to be the first team that truly leaned into the new age of athlete entrepreneurs. And instead, they blinked. They hesitated. They fumbled. They defaulted to old instincts. Play it safe. Stick to the veteran. Control the narrative. Meanwhile, Shedeur took control of his. And when the deal dropped, $50 million secured without their help. His name trending nationwide, Nike and EA Sports locking in multi-year partnerships. Cleveland realized they hadn't just missed the bus. They were standing on the wrong platform. Because here's the thing, this wasn't a deal designed to shock the league. It was designed to warn it. The new generation of athletes isn't waiting for permission. They're not afraid to step out of the playbook. And they're definitely not going to sit quietly in the background while coaches and GMs groom them for the spotlight. Shedeur walked into that spotlight on his own. Before he threw a touchdown. Before he took a sack. Before he even laced up for week 1. And he's not just getting paid. He's setting a new standard. Let's talk numbers. $15 million in jersey sales before he ever suited up. That's not hype. That's demand. That's market power, and it's coming from fans who aren't just watching a player. They're investing in a persona. The $250 million Nike deal? That's legacy-building cash. That's not thanks for the highlights money. That's let's build an empire money. Signature lines, personal branding, youth initiatives, cultural campaigns. He's already scaling himself like a business. AT&T, EA Sports, an entire barbecue sauce line? Those aren't side hustles. That's vertical integration. That's Shedeur understanding the power of ownership in every direction. He's not endorsing brands. He is one. And what's wild is how natural it looks. While other rookies are trying not to flub a press conference, Shedeur is managing media like he's been doing it for a decade, which, honestly, he kind of has. Growing up under the Coach Prime spotlight, every camera was training. Every moment was reps. This is not a player who stumbled into fame. This is someone who trained for it. And now that he's here, he's ready to monetize every pixel of it. The NFL? It's not used to this kind of control from players. They've built their empire on the assumption that rookies come in hungry, quiet, grateful. That you earn your power with wins and stats. But Shedeur flipped the script. He came in with the leverage already loaded. And now every team that passed on him, or passed on the vision he represented, is scrambling to figure out how they missed it. So let's talk big picture. This isn't a blip. This isn't a flashy headline. This is the beginning of a shift. The old NFL model, draft, develop, delay, is being challenged by a new one. Build, brand, bank. And Shedeur Sanders is the prototype. The Browns had a shot to be the first franchise to embrace that shift. Instead, they clung to a system that's crumbling under its own conservatism. Now they're watching Shedeur rise, not just as a quarterback, but as a media mogul, a cultural symbol, and an icon in the making. And the rest of the league? They're officially on notice. Because the prime equity clause wasn't a one-time anomaly. It was the start of a movement. And Shedeur Sanders? He's not running from the expectations. He's leading the charge. So what do you think? Is the prime equity model the future of athlete contracts? Did the Browns just fumble their best chance at relevance? And how long before the next rookie quarterback demands full control of their image and brand, before they even shake Roger Goodell's hand? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you're here for the play-by-play on sports' biggest shakeups, the moments where brands are built, legacies are claimed, and power shifts in real time, hit that subscribe button. Because Shedeur didn't just sign a deal. He launched a revolution. And we're only in the first quarter. The prime equity clause is already echoing through locker rooms, agents' offices, and corporate boardrooms like a war drum. If you think Shedeur's deal is just some flashy one-off for a headline-grabbing quarterback, you're missing the bigger picture. This clause is a framework, a template. And now that it's public, rookies with marketing savvy and even a fraction of Shedeur's brand heat are going to start asking, why can't I have that? And here's where it gets even messier. The owners are scared, not just of the money, but of the loss of control. For decades, NFL teams have operated on a very simple, very effective formula. Draft the talent, own the brand, monetize everything around the player, without the player seeing the full pie. It worked for years, because players either didn't know their value or didn't have the leverage to demand more. But Shedeur knew both. And now the dominoes are lined up for others to follow. Because let's be real, this wasn't just business. This was strategy. A generational chess move by someone who's been preparing his whole life to be more than a quarterback. He watched Deion Sanders build a career that outlasted the game. Primetime wasn't just a nickname. It was a brand that raked in endorsement money, built cross-sport fame, and made Deion a household name even when he wasn't on the field. Shedeur learned at the feet of someone who didn't just play for greatness. He marketed it. And now, the sun is evolving the playbook. The prime equity clause isn't about greed. It's about ownership. It says, I know what I'm worth, and I'm not going to let someone else define it. It's a message to every team in the league that athletes aren't just assets. They're entities, brands, businesses. And that's terrifying for the old guard. Because if every player starts acting like a brand, what happens to the teams who refuse to evolve? What happens to the franchises still treating their rookies like they're lucky to be in the building? They get left behind. Like Cleveland, the Browns didn't just miss a quarterback, they missed a cultural flashpoint. They had a seat at the table where this revolution could have started in-house, where they could have been the franchise that embraced the new athlete model and built around it. But instead, they hesitated. They tried to fit a 21st century quarterback into a 1990 system. And now, they're stuck watching Shedeur light up the league and the business world from the outside. Let's talk about the timing, too. This deal landed before Shedeur played a single NFL down. That's not just confidence, that's preemptive dominance. It's saying, I don't need your approval to know my value. And here's the crazy part. He backed it all up without saying a word. There was no tweet storm, no press tour, no attention-grabbing antics. Just contracts, partners, business plays. Quiet moves with loud consequences. Because Shedeur doesn't need to say he's changing the game. He's already doing it. This level of composure, of foresight, it's rare in veterans, let alone a rookie. But it speaks to the kind of leadership he's built his brand on, calculated, composed, and unbothered by the noise. While the league scrambles to understand what just happened, Shedeur is probably already planning his next 5-year brand roadmap. Licensing deals, global marketing campaigns, youth initiatives, ownership stakes. You think this $50 million deal is the headline? It's just the prologue. Let's go deeper. Why did this deal rattle so many cages? Because it touches a nerve the NFL doesn't like to talk about: control. Not of the playbook, not of a locker room, but of the player. The league is built around infrastructure, collective bargaining, licensing deals, the illusion of equality. But once you start giving players equity-level control over their identity, that illusion starts to crack. And here's where it gets real. If one player can do it, so can others. The NFL thrives on the idea that its teams are the centerpieces, that you support the Cowboys, the Packers, the Browns, not the individual players. But Shedeur is flipping that on its head. Fans aren't just following teams anymore. They're following personalities, stories, brands. Shedeur is the brand. And teams that don't understand that, they're going to lose their spot in the hierarchy. Because in this new model, players drive engagement. They bring eyes to the game. They bring money to the table. You think jersey sales mean nothing? Try telling that to the Browns, who now have to watch millions in Shedeur Sanders merch fly off shelves, with none of it touching their books. That's not just a financial loss. That's a missed opportunity. A mistake that will define their reputation for years to come. Because no matter how many touchdowns Shedeur throws, or which team he eventually leads, it'll always be Cleveland who let him walk away before he even started. Let's wrap this up with one last truth bomb. This moment is bigger than football. This is the beginning of a shift in athlete power that's been quietly brewing for years. From LeBron's production company to Naomi Osaka's fashion brand, athletes are becoming full-stack entrepreneurs. But Shedeur Sanders just gave the NFL its first real dose of that future. And it's not going to stop with him. The next draft class? Watching. The marketing firms? Pivoting. The owners? Meeting behind closed doors. Because the era of total team control is over. Welcome to the player economy. So what happens next? Maybe we'll see more teams offer prime equity-style deals. Maybe we'll see an overhaul of how rookie contracts are structured. Or maybe, just maybe, some franchises will get bold and start building around brands instead of playbooks. One thing's for sure, Shedeur's just getting started. This wasn't a payday. It was a planting season. And by the time the rest of the league figures it out, he'll already be harvesting the future. While teams are still drafting game plans, Shedeur Sanders is drafting legacy blueprints. And at this point, his brand is moving faster than most teams' front offices can even comprehend. Let's rewind for a second, not to the press release or the contract signing, but to the mentality behind it all. Shedeur isn't just thinking like a football player. He's thinking like an owner. And that's the part that's quietly breaking the system. When rookies come into the NFL, they're expected to adapt, learn the playbook, fall in line, prove themselves. And sure, talent gets you headlines, but obedience gets you opportunity. That's the unspoken rule. But Shedeur? He walked in like he'd already played 3 seasons, on the field and in the boardroom. He didn't wait for a franchise to build around him. He built himself into a franchise first. That $50 million deal didn't just buy him independence, it certified him. It gave him the power of leverage, and in a league that thrives on keeping rookies in check, that's absolutely disruptive. You don't offer prime equity-style clauses unless you know what you're sitting on. And make no mistake, Shedeur knows. He knows the media value. He knows the audience he commands. He knows the aesthetic power of his story. He's a Sanders. He's coming out of a Coach Prime system. He's one of the most followed college athletes in the nil era. He's business literate, culturally dialed in, and surrounded by a marketing machine that knows how to win. If you're an NFL team, and you look at that and still try to lowball or develop him like it's 2005, you're toast. The Browns thought they could play the long game. Hold off. Let the vet take snaps. Keep the locker room traditional. But here's the twist. They weren't just delaying a quarterback start. They were delaying a cultural movement. And culture doesn't wait. Every second they kept Shedeur on the sideline, they were bleeding relevancy. Because in this new media landscape, a player's brand doesn't live or die by snaps. It lives on screens, socials, endorsement campaigns, crossovers, engagement metrics. Shedeur wasn't invisible just because he wasn't under center. He was everywhere. Which raises the next bombshell question. If your quarterback doesn't even need to play to be the most visible part of your organization, who really holds the power? Because when Nike drops a multi-year, multi-million-dollar endorsement before you've thrown a professional pass, that's not a bonus. That's validation. And now that validation is public. Every team that didn't draft Shedeur is now facing the reality that their chosen guy may not come with this kind of gravity. He may be great. He may be talented. But he probably doesn't have barbecue sauce deals, merch stores, and a fan base of millions that stretches well beyond the football demographic. And guess what? Teams are going to start realizing that matters. Football is still a business. And in this economy, attention is currency. If your starting quarterback has a killer arm but no brand, and the guy you passed on is driving youth engagement, selling out jerseys, and starring in campaigns next to global icons, that's going to show up in the real numbers. Ticket sales, merch, sponsorships, ad revenue, local broadcast deals. It's already happening. And as Shedeur continues to stack partnerships, his brand equity will begin to dwarf entire franchises in terms of visibility and cultural weight. That's when the game changes forever. Let's talk about precedent, because this is where things get really spicy. NFL contracts are notoriously restrictive when it comes to what players can do with their name, image, and likeness. The league licenses almost everything. You want to promote a product using your face? That might have to go through the team's PR department, or the NFL's marketing office, or a union representative. It's a maze, a control system. But Shedeur and the Prime Equity Clause just skipped the maze entirely. They went off-road. And now, that off-road path has become a trail others are going to follow. You think this is just about endorsements? Think bigger. This opens the door for full-fledged athlete-owned enterprises, media companies, gaming platforms, fashion houses. Think about LeBron's Spring Hill Company. Think about Serena Ventures. Think about F1 drivers owning esports teams. Now think about all that starting during a rookie contract. Shedeur just proved it's not only possible, it's profitable. And that shakes the entire draft system. Because now agents and players can walk into meetings with receipts. Here's what Shedeur did. Here's how many millions he made before his rookie season. Here's how many new fans he brought to the league. Now tell us why our guy should sign away his rights for peanuts. And you know what? Teams won't have a good answer, because they're already falling behind. The teams who win in the next decade won't just be the ones with the best scouting departments or offensive schemes. They'll be the ones who understand brand economics. They'll know how to partner with their players, not just coach them. They'll understand the difference between managing talent and collaborating with a media entity. So what does that mean for Shedeur? It means he's positioned to do what no rookie quarterback has ever done. Be bigger than the team, not in ego, not in arrogance, but in actual reach. He's playing at a different altitude, one where success is measured in cultural impact as much as completion percentage, one where legacies are built not just on rings, but on businesses launched, lives changed, and barriers shattered. And for the NFL, that's terrifying and thrilling all at once. because they've never had to contend with a player economy that's this smart, this fast, and this unapologetically direct. It's only a matter of time before Shedeur starts owning pieces of companies, not just getting paid by them. Private equity deals, tech investments, real estate plays, philanthropic arms. He's not just paving a lane, he's building infrastructure for other players to follow. And every move he makes now becomes a teaching moment for athletes coming up behind him. You can be elite and entrepreneurial. You can build wealth before your second contract. You don't have to wait for the system to validate you. You can create your own value. That's revolutionary. And if the NFL wants to survive this revolution, it's going to have to evolve fast. Because Shedeur's already 3 steps ahead. He's running a playbook the league didn't know existed. And while they're still trying to figure out how to stop it, he's already calling the next one. Right now, the NFL is still stuck in the denial phase. They're hoping this is a one-off, a fluke, a flashy headline that will fade after a few underwhelming preseason snaps. But that hope? It's paper thin. Because deep down, they know what's happening. The league just met its first rookie mogul. And the scariest part for front offices? He doesn't need them the way they need him. That $50 million deal Shedeur just signed isn't dependent on passing yards, playoff appearances, or MVP votes. It's built on ownership, on brand equity, and on the kind of cultural capital that can't be measured in combined stats. And that changes everything. See, in the old system, players had a shelf life. The league would wear them down, cycle them out, and replace them without blinking. But Shedeur's flipping that script. He's making the NFL work for him. And in doing so, he's cutting straight to the core of the power structure. Because what happens when a player becomes bigger than the badge on the helmet? What happens when the fans don't chant the team's name, they chant his? We're about to find out. And Cleveland? They'll be the case study in what not to do. They had a shot. They had the shot. A chance to align themselves with the most forward-thinking, brand-savvy rookie the league has seen in years. But instead of building around him, they tried to mold him, downplay him, contain him. You can't contain someone who's already gone global. While they were still debating who should take first-team reps in OTAs, Shedeur was closing high 7-figure deals with multinational corporations. And now, the Browns are standing outside the gates of a kingdom they could have helped build. Shedeur didn't snub Cleveland out of spite. He outgrew them before they even caught up. And the ripple effect? Oh, it's coming. Within months, you'll start hearing rumblings. Young stars demanding prime equity-style clauses. Agents rewriting contract templates. Teams scrambling to retrofit their marketing plans around individual player brands. And as all of that unfolds, Shedeur will be 10 moves ahead. Already in talks with international partners, launching documentaries, signing production deals, maybe even co-owning a franchise someday. Because that's what visionaries do. So let's not call this a disruption. Let's call it a recalibration. Because this isn't just about money. It's about message, autonomy, evolution. And the message is clear. Shedeur Sanders isn't waiting for legacy to find him. He's building it, one contract, one campaign, and one calculated move at a time. So stay locked in. Because if this is just the beginning, the league isn't ready for what's next. And Shedeur? He already is.